So LA County extended the COVID-19 eviction moratorium through September. And this is Jacqueline Cosgrove. Um, the report is reading because originally they had extended it for another month, I believe the month of July, and then they extended it again. So fearing a potential tsunami of evictions, which this is a real situation here, a crisis in terms of housing for renters and homeowners and landlords also. Everybody's in this. So the LA County Board of Supervisors voted Tuesday to extend the eviction moratorium all the way through to the end of September. And so the moratorium bars landlords in the county from evicting tenants who cannot pay their rent because of financial burdens related to COVID-19's pandemic, which is still ongoing. And so Governor Gavin Newsom is expected to announce an agreement later this week with legislative leaders for an extension of the state's eviction moratorium, which expired. It would have expired the end of this month, June 30th. But the supervisor, Sheila Koo, I'm just going to say Sheila K. um, so she authored Tuesday a motion, and it said that the county could not wait for the state to act. So the extension actually the beginning of a thoughtful phase out. So this is a Miss Sheila who said this. And so over the next 3 months, the county must collaborate with state officials to help LA residents apply for the state's rental assistance programs. So this is what was said. Only a fraction of tenants and property owners who might be eligible have received the assistance already, but due in part to lack of outreach by the state, overly complicated applications, and failure to translate the applications into languages other than English. And so that has been a huge issue as well. So many landlords also didn't really realize that they could get rent relief directly. And so they didn't realize this. So some of the landlords assumed that maybe the renters were going to get the money only. And that's not how it originally supposed to work. It was supposed to work where the landlords apply, and then they can list all the renters that they have back rent, and then they can receive the monies through these programs in that fashion. And if the renter has applied for the program, then they'll look at that application on the case by case situation, and they will apply the rent accordingly, but it goes straight to the landlord. However, if the landlord doesn't participate, then the renter, to my understanding what it was reading, the renter will receive I believe a percentage, and you'd had to pay 25% of your rent. Um, and some people are in the position that they can do some of that, and others may have really been experiencing some real extreme hardships, and they may have lost their place of employment altogether, and they may be still in the middle of looking for other employment, or they're only receiving unemployment monies. And so I'm also, speaking of unemployment, they're supposed to be starting July, I believe, the 1st. Now, people were getting unemployment and they didn't have to put the jobs that they were looking for. But now in July, you have to list all the jobs that you were searching, all the, basically go back to doing the job search, because they want to know that people are looking for employment, gainful employment, while they're receiving the unemployment monies. And so that's what I'm hearing as well. So many landlords, they didn't even realize they could get the rent relief directly. So for those landlords, the landlords can actually get the money directly, and it can go straight to their office or to them, and rather than having to rely on the tenant uh, sending the money to you. And so that's how it's supposed to work. But a lot of them probably didn't really understand the dynamics of how this thing works. So you got to go on the website and read. Um, there's a section for renters to fill out an application and a section for the landlords to fill out their portion. And they can actually, I kind of looked at it, and the landlords can actually go on there and fill out all of the back um, rent that was owed and due, and they can receive it. So I know that the state is contemplating, it goes on to say, some changes, but they're not going to put them in tomorrow or today. So Supervisor Hilda Solis, who co-authored the motion, said that tenants in her district, including in the Boyle Heights area, have harassed. They have been harassed by landlords demanding rents. So without precautions, a potential tsunami of evictions could follow. And so that's why some of the evictions have taken place, because they hadn't received money from some people, like maybe nothing. So I am dead serious about the fact that there are many people that are really pleading with us to do something now or today, she said, so we can't afford to wait. And that is true. So the board's motion extended the protections to commercial evictions in addition to residential evictions as well. So people with businesses probably are struggling, um, because all of this, it seems to all connect. It affects one, or everybody's affected some type of way. So it says the board's motion extends protections to commercial evictions in addition to residential, and it prohibits a no-fault eviction and evictions for unauthorized occupants and pets as well. And so, as well as nuisances for tenants who reasonably deny entry, or they're denied entry to their landlords during the public health crisis. Okay, so, and Cool's office has said this, and so several tenants wrote to the board pleading for this extension of the moratorium, whether because of the pandemic-related loss of income or because of the county's steep rents. And so that's the other issue. Here in Los Angeles, the rent is just ridiculously high in Los Angeles County. And a lot of these places, they usually want market rate rent, and the rent for some of these places that back in the, I remember in the 80s and 90s, I think the highest was maybe, you thought 8 and 900 was a lot of money, and now you wish your rent was that low. You'd look at that as being low right now, because they want 2 grand, 3 grand. They always listed like 2K or 3K or something like that. 2 grand. They want like anywhere from like over 2,000 to 3,000. Some places are 4,000 a month in rent. And so there's some studios that are priced at almost 2,000 a month, and the square footage is really small. You might not even get um, a decent size place to live. And so they're wanting money. This seems like over time it had skyrocketed for some reason. Um, and they say, from what I was really looking at all of this, they say that some of the places people will have a home and they'll move in, and then they don't stay that long. They have the intention of getting a payout from the equity of their housing, and they get this money and then they move out, and then these um, rental companies come in sometimes and they'll buy these properties and hijack the homes. I've heard of this. and they call it hijacking the house. And so they'll take the house and rent the house out, but rent it out for really high rents, because you have what is a house, but you don't own the house, you're renting the house. So you have a nice yard and you have all the amenities of as if you were a homeowner, but you're not actually owning the house. You're renting the house out. And so that's what they call hijacking the homes. And a lot of these rental companies are starting to look at houses that are just kind of left, where either they've gone into foreclosure and that home is now, you know, abandoned. They can't find anyone that can purchase it or whatever at the time being. So some of the these companies or these people that are owners of rental businesses, will buy homes now and rent the homes out. And I know that was happening in the South before I left, visiting family members. There was some houses that were being rented out, and that's the new thing that they've been doing. Um, and I believe we're going back into a time which is not good. I've been seeing a few ads pop up, not as many, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start this again. Con- Contract leasing, where you'll see these little things where they'll get you all excited and make you think that you're gonna one day have an option to buy a home, and you just keep leasing, but you're not really gonna buy it. It's not gonna really amount to you buying a home, so you end up paying more than you would had you had to just save the money and try to figure out a way to save on your own down payment to actually get a home. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And then these foreclosures, there are homes that are under foreclosure, are almost under foreclosure. They're behind. I was reading an article where a lady said she was $30,000 behind in her rent, and she had children, small children at that. And she said she worked at a realtor company, and I don't know, how well it was doing, but for her, she said she lost her job, and so she couldn't find anything else at the moment, and so she was $30,000 behind in rent, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So there's a lot of people that are in situations similar to that, or maybe worse. So that is that is some of what I've been hearing. Then I've heard people who lost jobs altogether. Then I've heard people who they started working, but their jobs are still affected by the pandemic. So they don't have a lot of business, or they don't have a lot of clients, or there's still fear out there from the new variants of these viruses. And so they don't have the full capacity of people, even though they've been yelling reopen and all this. But now I've also heard all this plays together, it all ties together, that because people that are in places where they're unvaccinated, um, they're more susceptible to getting sick. And I spoke with a woman not very long ago, and she said she didn't get the flu shot and she didn't get the vaccine. And I'll just be frank with you here. There's people in the black community, that don't believe in getting the flu shot and getting the vaccine, and they'll use religious reasons for it, or sometimes, but a lot of it is fear. From what I heard from this particular person was fear, and they felt like that you're doing a disservice to the black community because you might be putting something in there that might kill black people rather than help them. And so there's this deep distrust in, if it isn't law enforcement, it's the healthcare industry, because of things that have happened currently and in the past. The past does affect the present and the future. And so I've been saying this. And so what you do to people from long ago, people say, "Oh, forgive and forget." People don't forget. They may they really, to be honest with you, they don't really forgive that. Because if you kill a lot of people or murder a lot of people, and it turns out to be a scandal or something malicious and racial, people never forget that. And the fear just lingers. And that is probably one of the biggest issues in the black community as to why most of them will not get the vaccine. Some are getting the vaccine. I'm not saying that all black people, because some will get vaccinated. They'll get the flu shot, they'll get all of everything because they just, they'll start thinking about, I have diabetes or I have asthma or I have whatever the health issues are, because there's a lot of health issues within the black community that sometimes are already inherited, because of maybe foods that people eat culturally or maybe the family history. And so a lot of times people will say, heck no, I'm getting vaccinated, I'm getting the flu shot, all the shots. So that's not every single black person that you hear of. I do notice too, there's on not only the racial violence that's been going on, I feel like there's like race war, happening. It's happening with people that are hating blacks, people that are hating Latinos, people that are hating Asians. It's like a racial war out there. And so that's why you're seeing all these crazy stories about people being discriminated and things like that, because this pandemic, it seems like it exacerbated a lot of craziness. And then, people are on edge. You have a lot more tents all up along Vermont and Manchester area. I went into the Hollywood area, all up along Vine. There are like homeless people, you wouldn't believe, like tents and just encampments like everywhere where you see, and then they try to clean up and pack up their stuff and kind of shift their stuff away. But then at night, or either like, it is really bad, especially at Venice Beach. Oh my gosh, it is so sad. It's like these beaches here in California, they used to be like the places that were the go-to places if you wanted to go out and enjoy yourself and take your family to the beach, go get something to eat maybe, and relax. And now you're worried about the homelessness, the people that are out there. And if you're, and I hate to be the one to say this, but this is the truth. There are some situations that are really sad, and you understand why people are in their predicament and they're homeless for various reasons, but there is danger as well. We cannot ignore. There are some people that they've got mental illness, or they're always fighting. You don't know if they're gonna snatch your purse, if they're gonna hit you upside the head. And who wants to go to the beach and go hang out and then be subjected to where they could get their purse snatched or their car windows busted because homeless people are looking for money or change or whatever. It's crazy. And so you don't even want to go to those places. It's like Skid Row. There are places you could park, but nobody parks there. It's dangerous because somebody could use your car as a place to sleep. And so it's like it's not safe in a lot of areas. I've been noticing. And then like the people who own the properties, they're complaining downtown that I was driving down there, and you can see where some homeless encampments, they're cooking. They got a grill, or they don't even have a grill. They'll have something they'll make into a grill, and they'll be cooking out there. And those embers from the fire pit, they attach to the buildings and to the businesses, and that's how they get it catch on fire. And so it's so sad. You're seeing all of this unfolding. It's like every morning that I go out, when I go to work, you'll see more and more tents all up along Vermont Boulevard. And there were even, and this is a scary thing, I don't know if anybody has seen this, where you go to the ATM and there's a group of homeless people just encamped by the ATM machines. I don't feel safe with that. I'll be honest with you, because I saw where some people get robbed like that because the people are watching you take your money out of the ATM machines. I go to ATM machine where no people are encamped around there, because it's dangerous, and you don't know, they're watching you. They're watching you put your PIN number in there. They're watching you when they're trying to see how much money you're getting out, because they don't, they had people that were panhandling, um, and they're still doing it. It's getting crazy because, like, on what's the street? It's like before you get to Normandy, um, here in LA, it's at Normandy and Century. There's people, they just get right in the middle of ongoing traffic and start asking you to open your window. They don't have no mask on, nothing. You don't know if they're sick or anything. They come right at your window, and the light could be green, and you don't want to hit them, and they'll get right in front of your car. Like, you're supposed to slam on your brakes. It has gotten crazy. I'm telling you, there's some streets that you just don't even want to. When you experience that, you're like, I'm not going around on that street anymore. I'm gonna go around the corner and go somewhere else. And so I'm just giving you more of what's been going on. And then the other sad thing that I'm gonna add to all of this right here, this moratorium, people just are not making that kind of money. They're not making that kind of money. And then if they do make that kind of money, they gotta really like be like on time with when they're making the money, because things are so uncertain now because of this pandemic. I think it has really affected in everybody and everywhere some kind of way. And so uh, we went through. I'll be honest with you, because I can attest to what's going on here. The place where I stay, we are on our fourth landlord company, because they've sold the building that many times, or tried to get another person, because they had troublesome tenants. And these people, that before the pandemic was heaven to them, because they took advantage of it. And let me tell you a full example of what's going on. So I know where the renters, how they feel, and I know how the landlords feel too, because it's on every level. It's craziness. And so we had tenants where they would come in. These people were drug dealing, and they would have all these rental cars. They would come in with all these different cars, and one person, she would change her license plates regularly, because she didn't want anybody to know or track what she was doing. And then all times of the night, there was a lot of traffic coming in and out, people coming in and out, and they would have backpacks. And I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what was going on. They weren't selling Girl Scout cookies. So you could see what was going on. They were all hours of the night. They were coming in, and they would have the music all cranked up, and then there would be fighting and all this kind of stuff going on. And so, it took forever and ever to get those people out. They were horrible. It was like the tenants from hell, and they weren't paying they were paying zero in rent, and they already had an eviction. They didn't care. So anybody, the way the building was built, anybody that would come in the building or go out the building would get blocked by cars. They were blocking other people who were living here, blocking them, so they couldn't actually enter and go into their own apartment. And you couldn't go out if you have an emergency or something like that. They were blocking people. They were taking all of their frustrations they had towards the management company on innocent tenants. And so you were subjected to this craziness, all the fighting. People would be up at midnight, they'd be up at 1 in the morning, all times of the hours. They'd be in and out with backpacks, and then they would sit up and lie and say, "We're not selling drugs," and they were selling drugs. There's some of the people that were coming through here. It didn't take long for you to figure out what was going on, and then I guess, their business slowed down because of the pandemic, and stuff was happening, and so they weren't getting the money they was getting. So then they went into uh, for a while, you would see all these envelopes from EDD with these EDD cards. And so I said, that's what they're doing. That's how they're getting their money. So they were frauding EDD. And so, when they send those cards, one while they were sending those cards, they weren't even getting people's like ID and all that stuff. But then later, as the fraud started to increase with EDD, and a lot of people complained about it, they started having people to show their ID, and you had to take a photo, and you had to do it online, and you had to wait for somebody from EDD to verify that you were who you say you are. Because at first they weren't doing that, and so I would see all these EDD cards, and I would just send them back like through the postal thing, and it was coming from these people who were selling drugs that were living around here. And then um, then there was another group of people that were bad, troublesome tenants. What they were doing, now that I can understand you're going through hardships, but you got kids. That they would they went and bought 2 new cars. Now this was during the whole thing when it was unfolding. They already had an eviction against them, and they just kept staying. When the pandemic happened, and they started doing the eviction moratorium, it halted evictions for those people like that. And so they would let their kids roam all over the building. The kids were allowed. They were tearing up the building. They were coming to people's doors, making noise in front of the doors. And I believe that the mother was telling them to do that, to just be a nuisance, an annoyance. So that's what it says here, nuisance. And so now I know personally there were some people that didn't feel safe in the buildings, and so they would get a pet so that it would alert them if somebody was breaking into their apartment. So that part right there was why they would get a pet, because they were feeling afraid that somebody could break in on me. They've got these drug people coming through here and stuff. So you don't know what's going to go down. There could be anything that could happen. All this fighting and everything, and then when you would call the police, now the dynamic of having the police involved is because of all this racial stuff going on, and the police, you can't trust them either. So you call the police, they would take their time, wouldn't come out here. The only thing the police would say is when a fight happens, then call us, because they don't want to deal with black folks and Hispanic folks anymore in the communities because of all of what's been happening. And so I'm just giving you what's really going on. And so that is what I've personally seen happen in the neighborhoods like in South Los Angeles. And so in terms of the landlord, they would have to get the phone calls from people complaining about the drug dealing, or people complaining about the fights, people complaining about not being able to have access to get to their apartment because they're being blocked by these random people coming in and creating a disturbance. And so then they're also not getting any rent from these troublemakers. And so that's how it affected landlords. And then you have some landlords that from before had a hard time getting those people out. And so the owners had to find a new management company or person to represent their properties so that they can get these troublesome tenants out. And so that's why some of those evictions legally they happen, because there were people that were just a hot mess, a hot mess. And so they made it bad for people who really do need this moratorium. However, you have people who really did lose their job, or they really do need an extension of this moratorium. They really are trying to do their best. They're trying to pay what little they have, or maybe they were affected by the EDD fraud. They were supposed to get money, they never received it. There's a whole laundry list of different issues that are happening. So, with this article, it says, I guess this is a tenant who's explaining some of the issues that happen, or some people who are explaining some of the issues that have happened with them. So several tenants wrote to the board pleading for the extension of the moratorium, whether because of a pandemic related loss of income or because of the county's steep rents, which is true. And so it says here in quotes, my landlord wants to sell our rental to capitalize on the massive amounts developer capital being dangled in front of property owners. That's another thing that has happened. Sometimes there's this hot market. They keep saying that on TV. Oh, they're buying all these homes and they're doing all this stuff, and then the developers come and then they start having all this money, and then they start telling them, oh, you can get this amount. And so this is a resident, Tiffany Wright, who wrote this. She says that I have never missed a rent payment, including during the pandemic, right? But there are almost no affordable rentals for me to move into. So if my landlord's allowed to remove my rental from the market, I will have a very difficult time finding a new housing. And so this is true. It's crazy. And I think it's starting to be a problem everywhere. Even when I left the South, they were building up condos out there. And I said, watch, they're going to do the same stuff that they do here in Los Angeles out in the South. But only thing that out there, they'll take rent houses. They'll buy houses cheap or fixer up houses and rent them out and do that same crap. And so the board also heard from the desperate landlords. Okay, so it's back and forth, back and forth. So Ashley Lustein, 33, who runs a small mom and pop real estate operation with her husband, said the rent is their only source of income. So these are smaller landlords, right? Not the big mega companies that just siphon money out of poor people. So at this point, she says they're out of $1 million in rental payments, and they haven't received one since the pandemic had started. So there's people who haven't paid; they've paid only zero, and so this has to end. Lewenstein said in her comments to the board. So, as the landlord myself, my children get food on the table by being able to collect rent. And so, not only have I not been able to collect the rent, but my payments on this property leave me upside down. So, the measure passed by the board that carves out an exception for single family homes. So LA County landlords will be allowed to evict tenants from single family homes if they or a family member need to live there. So the landlord can only evict tenants who were financially unaffected um, by COVID-19, and the home must have been purchased before June 30th. Okay, so the tenant 62 um, or older can only be evicted if, so they have rules for eviction, who can be evicted and who can't be evicted. So if you're 62 years or older, um, you can only be evicted if the person's moving into a home that is in that age group. And so the same is true for tenants who have disabilities, are terminally ill, or low income. The person moving in must similarly be situated. Okay, so as part of the motion passed Tuesday, county attorneys will prepare a report on whether the board can mandate the landlords apply for rental assistance before taking action against a tenant. And so the report will also address the legality of potential requirements that tenants document a financial impact on COVID-19 and make a good faith effort to apply for rental relief. So you have to apply for rental relief as a tenant, and you have to say, I was impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is the reason why I'm either behind a month or two, and I'm trying to play catch up, or I lost my job and then they just opened everything back up. Because some people are in this, and this kind of happened to me where I didn't lose my job. My job closed because of the pandemic, and then I had to wait until they could reopen again. So some people might be in that where you didn't really lose your job. You were on like notice that all the members, for the safety of the people working there, that they had to close down for a bit. and they would let you know when you could come back and when it was safe. And then there are protocols that they had to follow for you to continue working there. Um, some jobs are requiring people to get vaccinated. Others, you have to have an exempt notice or something like either religious reasons or maybe health reasons why you didn't get the vaccine. But you got to be always, they got to always check your temperature, and they always check if you travel out the country or if you have any symptoms and stuff. So they'll take you through all of those steps, and you have to be in a mask at work. And so that's how my job is. You have to wear a mask. You can't not just come in and not wear a mask. So as part of, it says Tuesday's part Tuesday passed motion on Tuesday, county attorneys will prepare a report whether the board can mandate the landlords apply for rental assistance before taking action against the tenants. So the report will also address legality potential requirements that um, tenants document the financial impact of what the COVID did in good faith effort to apply for rental relief. So cool. She cautioned that her colleagues on the board about ending COVID-19 tenant protections too soon, considering the obstacles to getting state rental assistance to those who need it. So tens of thousands of county residents have barely held on during this crisis. So in our eagerness to reopen, and I'm with everybody on this, that we really have to be careful not to open the door to a mass eviction situation. So this is cool. I hope I pronounced the name correct because I couldn't in the beginning. So this is what they've said, and so I really do know about this whole thing because it's impacting a lot of people. Some people have been fortunate enough to work through the pandemic. I know some people who said that they were able to pay their rent, they worked through the pandemic, but I've heard some people that aren't happy about the fact that they had to work through the pandemic because it potentially put their lives at risk because they're still exposed around people who they don't know are safe to be around. And so yeah, so you could be working around people. Some of these jobs don't require everybody to get vaccinated and stuff. And sometimes people will lie and say they're part of a religion so they won't get vaccinated. So I just spoke with somebody who she says she don't get the flu shot and she didn't want to do the vaccine. And so the other thing is I recently saw that the vaccine has complications for teenagers and they can have heart inflammation. And so these are the things that scares people. That's the reason why some people will pass on the vaccine because they're more afraid of the side effects of what it could do, the damage it could do to them as adults or their children. And and it's not always just the beliefs of religion. It could be the distrust in the medical industry that you're putting their life in your hands, and they don't know if you're going to really do what you say you're going to do or if you're going to give them a cocktail that could actually exacerbate. Maybe they already had an illness they didn't know. Now they know they got an illness and they're dying because you gave them a shot and it affected them. And so a lot of people are afraid for a lot of reasons like that, and but here's the other fear. People who don't get vaccinated might possibly put themselves in another situation where they could be vulnerable for these diseases that are floating around. And so their immune system might be, you know, seem like it's holding on and they feel a little safer to not get the shot. But you kind of playing, you kind of stuck between a hard place, and you don't know, is the shot going to kill me or is these diseases going to affect me, and am I going to be, my immune system going to be compromised? But you just don't, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. So it's like all these things are really affecting a lot of people. So yeah, so they extended the moratorium here in LA County to September, and the way this is looking, it could get extended even more. They probably won't. They're probably, with this, the months they got left up to this September is to probably try to pay those landlords, I would bet, to keep from evicting tenants or to keep from having to feel the pinch of, I'm going to lose my business, or, I can't feed my, family, or I'm having problems. So I believe that's where we're headed. So, in a nutshell, I'm going to let this video go.